Welcome back to All American Tractor Works. I'm Greg Mipps. We're back here with our 1953 International Super H. We have reached a critical point here. We have the transmission closed up finally. That was last episode we did that. And because we're at this point right now, the things that I can do or want to do moving forward are a little bit limited. And the reason for that is because I want to paint this before I get the majority of it together. I know a lot of guys, when they paint, they'll get the tractor almost all put together, probably minus the sheet metal, and they'll paint. This one, when I paint it, I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to take and the only other thing we're going to put on here, I'm going to put the torque tube on, so that all of that's assembled. I'm not going to put the engine on to paint it. I will paint the engine separate, paint this all separate from that assembly. And like I said, the reason for that is I like to be able to lift this up so I can paint underneath. I don't care to get down on my back or my hands and knees and have to paint. So I'm hoping that I can do it in this position. Just use my engine lift to lift it up, get the bottom of it, put it back down. And then, like I said, I'll paint the engine separately in the sheet metal and things like that. The good news is it's starting to warm up here, so it's getting to a time when it's good to paint. Yeah, the shop is heated here, and I probably could paint at any time, but it is nice to be able to get some fresh air in here when you're painting. Be able to open the doors a little bit, let some fresh air in so you're not choking on your paint. Granted, I do wear a respirator and all that. It is just nice to have the fresh air. So what do I have left on this that I can do at this point? Well, as you can see, we have the brake assemblies that are still off. Those can go on. I am going to take and put the pedals back on because I want to paint that all together. In back of me here, I have the torque tube. I have to go and clean that. I have not touched that yet. It is really nasty inside, so I got a lot of degreasing work to do there. And when I was taking it apart, I did notice there were some cracks in that as well that I'm going to take and have welded. I got a guy that's a really good welder. He's going to take care of welding that cast iron for me. I could do it. I'm going to have him do it. He knows what he's doing. He's really good at it. So that's what we'll do today. We're going to start looking at cleaning up the brakes. We'll look at cleaning up the brake pedals. I'm actually going to clean a lot of that up in my blast cabinet that I have, so we'll maybe talk about that. I know maybe a lot of you don't have one of those. It's a really nice thing to have. I have a small one. I don't have a really big one. Do you have to have one to do any of this work that I'm going to do? Absolutely not. You can do all this with a wire cut brush on a grinder, or just even a wire wheel on a grinder itself. So a lot of options there. It just happens to be one of those extra things that I just wanted to share with you that you can do. And it is a good option if you could get one of those into your shop. So let's go take a look at what we have already set, and we'll talk about the brakes, and we'll talk about what else we have coming that we're going to put together real quick before we start thinking about painting this. So let's go take a look at that. So one of the first things we can do, and this is a little detail, is I got to put this cap over the shifter. It's real simple. You're probably wondering before I put that on why I have blue tape around here. Why is there blue tape on here? I still need to order the plugs that go on either side of the pin here to keep the pin from coming out. This does not cover those, so I can put that on now. I actually got to put a parts order in. I got some different things I'm going to need to put our brakes together, things like that. So when I place that order, I'll get these plugs. We'll put that in a later date. I just figured I had this here now. Let's just get this put on. So that piece goes on first. Then there's this big washer, even though they call it a stop, that sits on there. You have your spring. You have another one of your stops. And then you have this cotter pin that goes in, and hopefully I can push this down and hold it in place so I can get in. I got my cotter pin in. Small detail, minor thing that we're doing here, but needs to be done. So I don't want to skip anything on you guys. We'll do it all, and I'll just bend that cotter pin around, hold the spring down, And we are good to go. I'm gonna bend this other side around too. I don't want anybody to poke themselves on that if they're ever up here on the operator's platform. Let's make this nice and safe. Have that bent around. There we go. Perfect. That's back on, all set to go. I did, just so you all know, one thing I did check when I got my top on, and you should probably want to do this too if you get to this point, is I did take and shift this into every gear. I was turning the front unit on here. I was turning it and made sure I could go through all the gears and everything turned properly. It was nice and smooth. Everything did exactly what it was supposed to, so that I know that all of my forks have engaged all of the gears in the transmission. So test that because you don't want to miss anything on that. It'd be a big bummer to get this all put together and find out that you can't shift into gear because you missed with one of your shifter forks. So make sure you check that. So as you can see, I had my manual here to put this back together because I can't remember it all. I want to make sure I get it right. But we got this done now. So now what we can do is let's go take a look at starting to look at our brakes and our brake pedals and what we're going to do with those. So here we are at our small table of parts, cleaned, some of them not cleaned yet. I wanted to point out, I took the brake hub that goes on the left side of the tractor. I was able to disassemble it, pulled it all apart. The one thing I wanted to share with you guys is how much junk I dumped out of this hub. This whole hub was just full of dirt and old insects and whatever else you can think of. It was really nasty. So cleaned it out, dumped it out. The brake faces are pretty good. You can see it's got a little surface rust on it in here. We'll clean that up. I'm not too worried about that. These units look pretty decent to me. I'm not familiar with International's brake system, so I'll have to check this out, make sure this is what I should have inside. I mean, nothing looks odd to me, like it's worn significantly in any way. What was a nice surprise was that my discs for my brakes look like they're in really good shape. I'm not going to replace these. I will reuse those. Both of them are in good shape. I cleaned them both up. I think they will be fine to go. There's still a lot of beef left on them, so I'm not worried about changing those out at all, which is nice. The other thing we have to clean up here is the clutch shaft. As you remember, this is going to hang off the front of that transmission, so I'm going to clean it up. I'll get it ready to go on, but I'm probably not going to put it on until I get that torque tube done and can put that all together at the same time. I'm just going to have this hanging out the front. I'll probably run into it and hurt myself more than anything else, so I'll wait till the torque tube gets put on. It's bad enough that I keep running into the rear axles that keep sticking out. But I'll clean that up. I'll get ready to go. And then we've got our brake pedals here, both of them. These I'm going to take over to my sandblast cabinet, and I'm going to clean these up in there. I think it'll be the easiest way to do it, and I figured I'd share that with you. You don't have to do it that way. These easily can be cleaned up with a wire cut brush or on a wire wheel on a bench grinder. All that stuff will work just fine. You don't have to have the blast cabinet. I have the springs and all the assorted pieces that go with this. And then this is the actuating lever that goes on the opposite side to actuate. This will be on the clutch side, you believe this will go on. This is to actuate the brake on the left side. So we'll get all this cleaned up. We'll get it put back on. And probably by the time I get to that point, hopefully I'll have that torque tube cleaned up and back from being welded. And maybe we could, in one of the future episodes here, we'll put all that stuff back together. And that'll pretty much complete that whole portion of the tractor. And at that point, it'll be nice because we can shoot some red paint onto this thing and maybe really get it to look like it's coming together. That's the part I'm excited for. But we got stuff to concentrate on here right now, so let's move on to that first. Here we are at the blast cabinet. I talk about, like I said, it's small. I don't have a big one. You can get huge ones of these. This is actually a scat blast cabinet, and I highly recommend them. I've had it for years now. I absolutely love it. All you got to do on mine's a top feeder. I'm just going to take and put my brake pedal inside. There is a light inside so you can see, even though once you start blasting, it does get a little hard to see. I'm just going to take and throw my latches on. I also have behind me here is a vacuum system that kind of keeps the dust down. So I will plug that in and we'll start getting blasting. So here we are out of the blast cabinet with one of my brake pedals, and you can see that I've knocked off all the rust. I got a little bit of work I might do on here. I might clean up along this edge here a little bit. You can see what the blast cabinet does. It makes a perfectly prepared painting surface. You'll notice that I don't take all the red paint off either, and you can do that. You can go right down to the bare metal, and a lot of guys will do that so that they can start with a clean primer coat and a clean color coat. I don't do that. I usually go right into the color. It's a lot of work to get this down to bare steel. If that's what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of people do that. It does give you a little bit smoother paint job, but because all of this is cast iron and it's so rough to begin with, in my experience, it hasn't been worth the time to do it. Not saying that it's not worth doing, but I just feel like I got an equivalent paint job whether I went and primed it and then color coated it or just went to the color coat right away. So I don't remove all of my paint at all. I get all of the rust off the dirt and just get a good clean paintable surface, and that's what I've got here. Like I said, I've got a little cleanup to do. I'll clean up this hole in here with a wire brush. I'll take and wash it, degrease it, make sure it's all clean, ready to take paint. But I'll do the other one. I'll do my brake hubs that go on the outside. That stuff will all be ready to go on. I'll clean up the inner parts of my brakes, and next time we'll put that back on this and we'll get that closed up. Maybe by that time I'll have my torque tube ready to go. We can put the clutch shaft in. I don't know if I'll have the clutch ready to go, but we're getting close. And what's crazy is about 6 months work now, we're getting back to the point where we basically started this show and taking this apart to that point. This is probably one of the more time-consuming pieces. Putting the engine together will be even more so time-consuming. It'll be a little bit more concentrated though, but once that's together, we get the engine on this, get this painted up, the sheet metal, everything from there will go very, very quickly. So it's crazy to think that we're through a good part of the bulk of this restoration at this point. The engine will be the next biggest one. And once we get through that and get that reconnected, I figure by that time we'll be about 2/3 of the way through the restoration. So it gives you a pretty good idea of how quickly or not quickly this goes, depending on how many hours you can commit to it all at once. So let's continue on with what we're doing. Let me go get the rest of this stuff cleaned up so that next time we're together, we can take and get this all mounted on and keep moving forward. Thank you for being here with us today on All American Tractor Works. If you liked what you saw today, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. I'm Greg Mips. Thank you.